There is a moon orbiting Saturn that makes no sense. It has rain, rivers, lakes, and seas covering its surface. But none of it is water. It's colder than anywhere humans have ever been. Yet organic chemistry happens there in ways we've never seen before. We call this place Titan, Saturn's largest moon, and the more we study it, the more impossible it seems. This is a world that shouldn't exist according to everything we thought we knew about planetary science. And yet, Cassini spent 13 years watching it prove us wrong. Let's talk about why nothing about Titan makes sense. Methane in Titan's atmosphere is constantly being destroyed. Sunlight breaks methane molecules apart. Energetic particles from Saturn's magnetosphere break them apart. These broken pieces recombine to form more complex organic molecules. Ethane, propane, acetylene, hundreds of different compounds. Eventually, these compounds get so large and heavy, they form a thick orange haze that blankets the entire moon. This haze is made of particles called tholins, complex organic chains containing carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen. The tholins rain down onto the surface. They accumulate. They form the dark dunes that cover much of Titan's equatorial regions. These dunes are vast. They stretch for hundreds of kilometers. The sand that makes them isn't silicon dioxide like on Earth. It's organic material, carbon-rich grains that look something like coffee grounds. But here's the critical point. This process consumes methane, a lot of methane. Scientists calculated that all the methane in Titan's atmosphere should be completely depleted in about 30 million years. That's a short time compared to the age of the solar system. Titan is 4.6 billion years old. So where is the methane coming from? There has to be a source. Something is replenishing the methane. Otherwise, Titan's atmosphere would have disappeared long ago. The moon would be airless, dead. For years, scientists proposed that Titan might have a global ocean of liquid methane beneath its surface, a vast underground reservoir that slowly leaked methane into the atmosphere over billions of years. But Cassini didn't find that ocean. Instead, it found something else. On January 14, 2005, the Huygens probe separated from Cassini and began its descent. It took 2.5 hours to fall through Titan's atmosphere. The probe photographed pale hills with dark rivers running down to a dark plain. The images looked eerily familiar, like Earth, but wrong. When Huygens touched down, it became the most distant landing humanity has ever achieved. Farther than Mars. Farther than any asteroid. 1 billion miles from home, and what did it see? Rocks. Small rocks and pebbles scattered across a dark surface. But these weren't rocks made of stone. They were made of water ice. At negative 179 degrees Celsius, water ice is as hard as granite. There was evidence of erosion at the base of these ice rocks. Something had worn them down. Something liquid, but it wasn't water. Titan is the only place in the solar system besides Earth that has stable bodies of liquid on its surface. But on Titan, the liquid is methane and ethane, natural gas in liquid form. Cassini's radar mapped Titan's surface over 127 flybys. It found seas, 3 massive bodies of liquid near the North Pole, Kraken Mare, the largest, Ligeia Mare, the second largest, Punga Mare, smaller but still vast. Together, these 3 seas represent roughly 80% of all surface liquid on Titan, about 691,000 square kilometers combined. That's larger than the Caspian Sea on Earth. The measured maximum depth of Ligeia Mare is roughly 200 meters. Ontario Lacus, a lake in the southern hemisphere, is about 90 meters deep. These aren't puddles, they're oceans of liquid methane. And it rains there. Occasionally, methane clouds form and drench the surface in oily rain. The liquid flows down channels carved into the ice. It pools in lakes. It evaporates back into the atmosphere. Titan has a methane cycle that works exactly like Earth's water cycle, except it happens at temperatures cold enough to freeze carbon dioxide solid. Now here's the problem. This shouldn't be possible. Cassini made numerous gravity measurements of Titan during its flybys. These measurements revealed that Titan's shape changes slightly over time. The moon bulges and contracts in response to Saturn's gravitational pull. This is only possible if there's something liquid beneath the surface. The Huygens probe also measured radio signals during its descent in 2005. Those signals strongly suggested the presence of an ocean 35 to 50 miles below the icy ground. The discovery was confirmed. Titan has a subsurface ocean, but not methane. Water. This ocean is likely mixed with salts and ammonia. The ammonia acts as an antifreeze, keeping the water liquid even at temperatures that would normally freeze it solid. The ocean might be as much as 200 kilometers deep in some models. So Titan has two oceans, one on the surface made of methane, one beneath the ice made of water. But that still doesn't solve the methane problem. If the subsurface ocean is water, not methane, where is the surface methane coming from? The leading hypothesis is cryovolcanism, ice volcanoes. On Earth, volcanoes erupt molten rock. On Titan, volcanoes might erupt chilled water mixed with ammonia and methane. These eruptions would release methane from deep within Titan's interior, replenishing what's lost from the atmosphere. Cassini found evidence of several candidate cryovolcanic features. Doom Mons and Erebor Mons are two mountains that might be cryovolcanoes. Sotra Patera is a large depression that could be a caldera. Mohini Fluctus is a system of flow-like features that might be frozen cryolava. Between 2005 and 2006, parts of Sotra Patera and Mohini Fluctus became significantly brighter, while the surrounding plains remained unchanged. This could be evidence of ongoing cryovolcanic activity. There's also indirect evidence. Titan's atmosphere contains argon-40. This isotope is produced by the radioactive decay of potassium-40, which should be locked in Titan's rocky core. The presence of argon-40 in the atmosphere suggests some process is bringing material up from the interior. Cryovolcanism is the most likely explanation, but it hasn't been proven. So, the methane mystery remains partially unsolved. We know methane is being replenished. We think cryovolcanism might be responsible, but we don't know for certain. And that's just the beginning of what makes Titan strange. Titan is the only moon in the solar system with a thick atmosphere. Let's be clear about what that means. More than 150 moons orbit planets in our solar system. Only one has a substantial atmosphere. Titan. Even more remarkable, Titan's atmosphere is denser than Earth's. At the surface of Titan, the atmospheric pressure is about 60% greater than on Earth. It's roughly the same pressure a person would feel swimming about 50 feet below the surface in Earth's ocean. But Titan has only 2% of Earth's mass. Its gravity is much weaker. By all rights, Titan shouldn't be able to hold on to an atmosphere this thick. The gas should have escaped into space billions of years ago. Yet it didn't. The atmosphere extends to an altitude 10 times higher than Earth's, nearly 370 miles into space. It's a massive envelope of gas that somehow hasn't been stripped away by the solar wind or Saturn's magnetosphere. The composition is also unusual. About 95% nitrogen, about 5% methane, small amounts of other hydrocarbons and trace gases. Now here's what's strange about that. Nitrogen is a relatively heavy molecule. It doesn't easily escape from a planetary atmosphere. But methane is lighter. It should be lost to space much faster. Yet Titan keeps its methane. Not just for millions of years, for billions. This is part of what makes the methane replenishment question so important. The atmosphere itself is a puzzle. How did it form? How does it persist? Why is Titan the only moon that has it? Scientists suspect the answer lies in Titan's formation. Measurements of nitrogen isotopes in Titan's atmosphere show ratios that match comets from the Oort cloud. These are icy bodies that orbit the Sun at extreme distances, 5,000 to 100,000 astronomical units away. This suggests Titan's building blocks formed early in the solar system's history, in the same cold disk of gas and dust that formed the Sun itself, not in the warmer disk that formed Saturn and its other moons. Titan might have captured its nitrogen from this primordial material. The nitrogen was then converted from ammonia ice into gas over billions of years, released slowly through cryovolcanism or impacts, building the thick atmosphere we see today. But that's just a theory. The truth is, we don't fully understand how Titan's atmosphere came to be, or why it's still here. And the atmosphere has one more trick. It's a chemical factory. When Christian Huygens pointed his handmade telescope at Saturn on March 25, 1655, he had no idea what he was looking at. He saw a fuzzy orange dot. He named it Luna Saturni, Saturn's moon, the first satellite ever discovered around another planet besides Jupiter. For more than 3 centuries, that's all Titan was, a fuzzy orange dot. Even our most powerful telescopes couldn't see through the haze. Then came the space age. Pioneer 11 flew past in 1979. It confirmed something astronomers had suspected since 1907. Titan had an atmosphere, a thick one. Voyager 1 followed in 1980. Its trajectory was specifically designed to get as close as possible to Titan. The spacecraft measured the density, composition, and temperature of the atmosphere. It determined Titan's exact mass. But the cameras saw nothing, just orange haze. The surface remained hidden. Scientists knew Titan was special, but they had no idea how special until Cassini arrived on July 1, 2004. The Cassini-Huygens mission was a joint project between NASA and the European Space Agency. Cassini would orbit Saturn. Huygens would drop through Titan's atmosphere and land on the surface. What they found changed everything. High in Titan's atmosphere, sunlight and energetic particles tear apart nitrogen and methane molecules. The fragments recombine. They form ethane, propane, acetylene, hydrogen cyanide, cyanoacetylene, benzene. At least 17 different organic compounds have been identified so far. These reactions don't stop there. The molecules keep combining, growing larger, more complex. Eventually, they form the tholins that give Titan its characteristic orange haze. This is prebiotic chemistry, the kind of reactions that might have occurred on early Earth before life emerged. In April 2013, NASA reported that complex organic chemicals, collectively called tholins, likely arise on Titan based on studies simulating the atmosphere. In June that same year, scientists detected polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons in the upper atmosphere. These are ring-shaped carbon molecules that are important building blocks for more complex organic chemistry. In September 2013, Cassini's composite infrared spectrometer detected propene in Titan's atmosphere. This was the first time propene had been found on any moon or planet other than Earth. But perhaps the most exciting discovery came in 2017. Cassini detected negatively charged molecules called carbon chain anions. These are linear molecules that are understood to be building blocks toward more complex molecules. They may have acted as the basis for the earliest forms of life on Earth. This was the first unambiguous identification of carbon chain anions in a planet-like atmosphere. Scientists believe they represent a vital stepping stone in the production line of growing bigger and more complex organic molecules. Interestingly, the data showed that the carbon chains became depleted closer to Titan's surface, while precursors to larger aerosol molecules underwent rapid growth. This suggests a close relationship between the two. The chains are seeding the larger molecules. This same process is known to occur in the interstellar medium, the space between stars. Now, we've seen it happening in a completely different environment, which means it could represent a universal process for producing complex organic molecules. All of this is happening in Titan's atmosphere right now, every day, for billions of years, and then it falls. The organic material drifts down through the atmosphere. It settles on the surface. It accumulates in the dunes. It mixes with the methane rain. It collects in the lakes. And then things get even stranger. In 2014, Cassini's radar spotted something unusual in Ligeia Mare, one of Titan's large northern seas. There were bright spots on the surface of the liquid, Radar bright features that appeared and then disappeared. Sometimes they lasted a few hours, sometimes several weeks. They came and went without warning. Scientists called them magic islands. Similar features were observed in Kraken Mare, Titan's largest sea. These were the first instances of active processes in Titan's lakes and seas to be confirmed by multiple detections. But what were they? Several hypotheses were proposed. Wind-generated waves, suspended solids in the liquid, floating solids on the surface, nitrogen gas bubbling up from the seafloor. Recent research in 2025 suggests the most likely explanation is floating chunks of organic material, specifically porous frozen organics that behave like icebergs. Here's how it works. The organic particles that rain down from Titan's atmosphere are likely highly porous, like Swiss cheese or terrestrial snow. If the porosity is high enough, between 25 and 60%, these particles can float on the methane-ethane lakes despite having a higher intrinsic density than the liquid. But there's a problem. Methane and ethane have very low surface tension. This makes it difficult for solids to float. The liquid wants to seep into any pore space. For the particles to float long enough to explain the magic islands, they need to be large, several millimeters in size or larger. And the liquid must seep into the pores slowly enough that the particle stays afloat for hours or weeks. Laboratory calculations show this is possible. If the pores are structured correctly, capillary forces can slow the infiltration of liquid. The particle becomes like a sponge that takes time to absorb water. Except in this case, it's organic ice-absorbing liquid methane. Eventually, the liquid fills the pores completely. The particle's average density increases. It sinks to the bottom. This would explain why the magic islands are transient. They appear when large chunks of porous organic material break off from shorelines or islands. They float for a time, then they sink. It's like watching glaciers carve on Earth. Except these glaciers are made of organic compounds, and they're floating on seas of methane. The existence of these floating materials might also explain another mystery about Titan's lakes. They're remarkably smooth. Wave heights are typically less than a few millimeters. If there's a thin layer of floating organic particles covering the surface, it could dampen wave formation, like oil on water, creating the unnaturally calm seas that Cassini observed. But this raises another question. If organic material is constantly raining down onto the surface, why isn't everything buried under meters of organic sediment? Titan has been around for 4.6 billion years, the same age as the solar system, but its surface is much younger, between 100 million and 1 billion years old. We know this because Titan has very few impact craters, and the craters it does have are shallow, eroded, partially filled in. Geological processes are actively reshaping Titan's surface, erasing the evidence of ancient impacts. On Earth, this happens constantly. Water erodes mountains, wind carves valleys, plate tectonics recycle the crust, craters disappear over time. Titan doesn't have plate tectonics, at least not in the way Earth does, but it has other processes that accomplish similar results. Methane rain erodes the landscape, rivers carve channels through the ice. Wind blows organic sand across the equatorial regions, building and reshaping dunes. Cryovolcanism might resurface certain areas with fresh ice. There's also evidence of tectonic activity. Mountainous ridges on Titan are concentrated in the equatorial regions. These ridges are primarily oriented east to west. They're linear to arcuate in shape. They resemble terrestrial fold belts that form from horizontal compression or convergence. Some scientists think these ridges indicate global contraction. As Titan cooled over billions of years, its interior shrank slightly. The ice shell thickened. Regional uplift occurred, creating the ridges we see today. The surface is also remarkably diverse. There are bright regions and dark regions. Xanadu is a large reflective equatorial area about the size of Australia. It's filled with hills and cut by valleys and chasms. Dark lineaments crisscross the terrain. These could be tectonic features, Or they could be ancient stream systems carved by liquid methane. The northern and southern polar regions are dominated by the seas and lakes. The equatorial regions are covered in vast dune fields. The mid-latitudes have what are called undifferentiated plains, radar dark uniform regions that appear younger than most major geological features except the dunes. All of this geological activity suggests that Titan is not a dead world. It's active, dynamic, constantly changing. But the most remarkable thing about Titan's surface might be what it could become. When organic material falls onto Titan's surface, it doesn't just sit there. If it lands on dry ice, it accumulates. Over time, these deposits might react with each other, forming what scientists call cryominerals, co-crystals of different organic compounds mixed together. If it lands in the methane lakes, something different happens. Most of the organic compounds that fall from Titan's atmosphere have limited solubility in liquid methane. This means the lakes eventually become saturated. The organic material stops dissolving. It either floats or sinks, depending on its porosity and density. But there are transient environments on Titan, where water and organics can interact. Impact events are one example. When a large asteroid or comet hits Titan's surface, the impact generates tremendous heat. The ice melts. Water briefly exists in liquid form. For hundreds, maybe thousands of years, a melt pool persists before it refreezes. Cryovolcanic eruptions create similar environments. Liquid water mixed with ammonia flows across the surface. It cools slowly. Organic material from the atmosphere mixes with the water. And when organic material mixes with liquid water, chemistry happens. Laboratory experiments have shown that when T-tangent-like organic compounds are mixed with water, they produce amino acids, glycine, alanine, aspartic acid, gamma-aminobutyric acid. These are the building blocks of proteins, the fundamental components of life as we know it on Earth. One particularly important reaction pathway involves molecules called aminonitriles. When aminonitriles are mixed with water that contains ammonia, they undergo a process called alkaline hydrolysis. This reaction produces amino acids. If Titan's impact melt pools or cryovolcanic flows contain at least 5% ammonia, and if aminonitriles are present in Titan's organic aerosols, then amino acids will likely form. Recent research published in 2025 showed that this reaction proceeds even at very cold temperatures, as low as -22 degrees Celsius. The reaction is slower at these temperatures, but it still happens. After 6 months at 3 degrees Celsius with 5% ammonia, the conversion rate reached 40% for alanine. At warmer temperatures near 21 degrees, the conversion reached 80%. This means that if Titan has impact melt pools that stay liquid for months or years, amino acid synthesis is not just possible. It's likely, but amino acids aren't life. They're just molecules, complex organic molecules, but not alive. The real question is whether Titan's environments could support actual living organisms. Titan's surface temperature is -179 degrees Celsius. That's -290 degrees Fahrenheit. At that temperature, all biochemical reactions, as we understand them on Earth, would proceed impossibly slowly. Water is frozen solid. It can't act as a solvent for biological processes. Life as we know it cannot exist on Titan's surface. But Titan has that subsurface ocean, liquid water, 35 to 50 miles beneath the ice, potentially harboring salts and organic molecules, at temperatures that might allow biochemistry to occur. If life exists on Titan, that's where it would be, deep beneath the frozen crust, in the dark water, fed by whatever chemistry happens at the boundary between the rocky core and the water ocean above. It's a familiar story. We think the same thing about Europa and Enceladus. Saturn's moon Enceladus definitely has a subsurface ocean. We know because Cassini flew through plumes of water erupting from cracks in the ice. The water contained salts, organic molecules, and molecular hydrogen, all ingredients that could support microbial life. Titan's subsurface ocean is similar, potentially habitable, but completely inaccessible with current technology. However, there's another possibility, one that's far more speculative but equally fascinating. What if life could exist in the methane lakes on Titan's surface? It would have to be radically different from Earth life. It couldn't use water as a solvent. It would have to use liquid methane or ethane instead. Scientists have proposed theoretical biochemistry based on this idea. Organisms that inhale hydrogen instead of oxygen, that metabolize acetylene instead of glucose, that exhale methane instead of carbon dioxide. In 2015, researchers modeled a hypothetical cell membrane capable of functioning in liquid methane at cryogenic temperatures. They called it an azotosome, a combination of azote, French for nitrogen, and liposome, a type of cell membrane on Earth. The azotosome would be composed of small molecules containing carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen. It would have the same stability and flexibility as cell membranes on Earth, which are made of phospholipids. This is pure speculation. No one has ever observed an azotosome in nature, but the fact that it's theoretically possible means we can't completely rule out surface life on Titan. In 2010, scientists detected unusual patterns in Titan's atmosphere that could theoretically be explained by methanogenic life on the surface. There was a greater abundance of molecular hydrogen in the upper atmospheric layers compared to the lower layers. Hydrogen was disappearing near the surface. There were also low levels of acetylene on Titan's surface. If methane-based life existed and was consuming hydrogen and acetylene as energy sources, this is exactly what we'd expect to see. But as the researchers themselves noted, other explanations are far more likely. Surface chemistry we don't understand, catalytic reactions involving minerals, unknown physical processes. Even so, the possibility remains. If life evolved on Titan, it would be the most alien life imaginable. Nothing like Earth life at all, a completely independent origin. And that would answer one of the most profound questions in science. Is life a universal phenomenon, or is Earth unique? Titan could tell us. NASA's Dragonfly mission is scheduled to launch in July 2028. It will arrive at Titan in the mid-2030s. Dragonfly is not a rover or a lander. It's a rotorcraft, a nuclear-powered octocopter drone that will fly from location to location on Titan's surface. This is possible because Titan's thick atmosphere and low gravity make flight relatively easy. The atmosphere is 4 times denser than Earth's. Gravity is 1/7 of Earth's. A helicopter can stay aloft with far less power than it would need on Earth or Mars. Dragonfly will explore Titan's equatorial dune fields. It will sample organic material. It will analyze the chemistry. It will search for prebiotic molecules and potentially even biosignatures. The primary landing site is near Selk Crater. This is an impact crater about 90 kilometers in diameter. Impacts generate heat. They melt the ice. They create temporary liquid water environments where organic chemistry can occur. If amino acids formed on Titan, Selk Crater is one of the most likely places to find them. Dragonfly's mass spectrometer will be able to detect amino acids at very low concentrations. If they're there, we'll know. But even if Dragonfly doesn't find amino acids, the mission will revolutionize our understanding of Titan. We'll finally have detailed chemical analysis of the surface. We'll know what the organic dunes are made of. We'll understand how methane moves through the environment. We'll see cryovolcanic features up close. And maybe, just maybe, we'll solve the methane mystery once and for all. Beyond Dragonfly, other missions have been proposed. Submarines that could explore Ligeia Mare, balloons that could float through the atmosphere for months, landers that could splash down in the northern seas and float while investigating the hydrocarbon cycle. None of these missions are funded yet, but the ideas exist. The technology is being developed. Titan is too fascinating to ignore. And in July 2025, NASA researchers published a study showing that cell-like compartments called vesicles needed to form the precursors of living cells could form in the lakes of Titan. The study suggests that liquid hydrocarbons might allow molecules needed for life to assemble in ways we've never seen before. Understanding this process could shed light on how life emerged on Earth, and whether life could emerge in completely alien environments. Titan is more than just a moon. It's a natural laboratory, a place where chemistry happens in conditions that might resemble early Earth, or that might represent something entirely new. So let's return to the beginning. Why shouldn't Titan exist? It's too small to hold such a thick atmosphere, yet it does. It's too cold for complex chemistry to occur on its surface, yet it does. It shouldn't have enough internal heat to drive cryovolcanism, yet evidence suggests it might. It shouldn't have a methane cycle that works like Earth's water cycle, yet it does. It shouldn't have organic chemistry that produces amino acids when mixed with water, yet it does. It shouldn't have floating icebergs made of organic material on seas of liquid methane, yet it might. Every time we study Titan, we discover something that challenges our understanding of how planetary bodies work. When Cassini completed its mission in September 2017, it had spent 13 years observing Saturn and its moons. 127 close flybys of Titan, thousands of images, gigabytes of data. That data showed us a world that operates by rules we're still trying to understand. Titan is a place where methane plays the role that water plays on Earth, where water ice is bedrock, where organic compounds fall like snow, where chemistry builds molecules of staggering complexity in an atmosphere thick enough to see. It's a world that feels familiar and alien at the same time, landscapes that look like Earth, but made of materials that would be toxic or frozen solid on our planet. And beneath it all, there might be an ocean, warm enough for life, rich enough in organic chemistry to support biology. Completely hidden from our view, we don't know if life exists on Titan. We might never know without drilling through 50 miles of ice. But we know that Titan is one of the most promising places in the solar system to search for life. Not because it's warm, not because it has liquid water on the surface, but because it has chemistry. Endless, complex, exotic chemistry that produces the building blocks of life everywhere we look. Titan teaches us that habitability isn't just about being in the Goldilocks zone. It's not just about having liquid water and a comfortable temperature. Habitability might be about having the right chemistry, the right energy sources, the right molecules in the right environment. And Titan has all of that. In ways we never expected, in forms we're only beginning to understand. Nothing about Titan should exist. It defies our models. It breaks our rules, and yet it's there, orbiting Saturn, wrapped in orange haze, covered in methane seas, filled with organic molecules, waiting for us to understand it. Today is December 16th, 2026. Cassini has been gone for 9 years. Its final mission was to dive into Saturn's atmosphere, sending back data until the very end. It burned up on September 15th, 2017. The Huygens probe is still on Titan's surface, silent, frozen, the first and only human-made object ever to land on a moon in the outer solar system. Dragonfly is being built. Its components are being tested. Its software is being written. In less than 2 years, it will launch toward Titan. And roughly 8 years after that, it will arrive. What will it find? We think we know some of the answers. But Titan has surprised us before. Every mission to Saturn has revealed something unexpected about this strange moon. Maybe Dragonfly will find amino acids preserved in impact melt. Maybe it will detect signs of cryovolcanic activity. Maybe it will sample materials that we've never encountered before. Or maybe it will discover something we can't even imagine yet, something that redefines our understanding of what's possible in the solar system, because that's what Titan does. It shows us that the universe is stranger and more interesting than we thought. It shows us that moons can have atmospheres thicker than Earth's, that organic chemistry can happen at temperatures that would freeze carbon dioxide, that methane can rain from clouds and fill seas and evaporate back into the sky. It shows us that worlds don't have to follow our rules. They follow the laws of physics and chemistry. And those laws allow for things we never predicted. Titan exists, despite everything that says it shouldn't. And that's the most important lesson of all. The universe is full of impossible things. We just haven't discovered most of them yet. For now, we watch. We wait. We prepare for Dragonfly to arrive. And we wonder what else Titan has to teach us.